This is what happens when an atheist meets a biblical historian. Let's watch Wes Huff debunk Ricky Gervais and his claims on atheism.
You don't believe in 2,999 gods, and I don't believe in just one more.
Right.
But before we go on, happy Easter Sunday, everybody. He has risen. Hallelujah. Amen. And I also want to read you a little poem I wrote for today, titled, He is Risen. The grave could not keep him. Death could not hold him. The chain of sin is broken. The gate of heaven is open. Eternity is no longer out of reach, for salvation is ours to keep. Make sure you don't forget the reason to the season and the sacrifice of Jesus Christ for our sin. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, for whomsoever believes in him shall never perish, but have everlasting life. Okay, let's move on to the video.
I've seen Ricky Gervais on various talk shows. He's one of the world's most famous atheists. And he says, look, there are 3,000 gods if you add them all up from all the religions. Who's to say your one's the real one? And what about the others then? Do they not exist? Are they not real gods? In other words, his position is, look, you can't all be right unless there are 3,000 different versions of a supernatural, spiritual being overseeing us all.
I know that you're an atheist, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. People have been debating. That's the devil waiting for you in hell, by the way.
So this is atheism in a nutshell. You say there's a God. I say, can you prove that? You say no. I say I don't believe you then. So you believe in one God, I assume?
In three persons, but go ahead.
Okay, so you believe... Okay. So, but there are about 3,000 to choose from that have been, people who believe in...
I've done some reading, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So basically, you believe in... You deny one less God than I do. You don't believe in 2,999 gods, and I don't believe in just one more.
Right.
What do you say to him?
Yeah, well, I think it's a rather foolish argument in that competition doesn't negate objective reality. So say we're using a courtroom analogy. If someone was convicted of a crime here in the city of Toronto where I live, and he stood before a judge and he said, really, you think I committed this crime? Do you know how many people are in the city? We have 3 million people in this city. And you think I'm the one who did the crime? Really? Out of all the, how many people are in Toronto? How many people are in Ontario? How many people are in Canada? How many people are in North America? You really think that given the amount of people that are on this earth, I'm the one who committed the crime? We wouldn't then look at the judge and say, well, that's a good argument. Have you really thought about how many other people are around who, just because this particular individual you think committed the crime? Really? Well, no, we don't just arbitrarily, pick someone, or in the case of Christianity, pick a God. We believe that the God of the Bible is the true God based on the evidence of not just what we find in the Bible, but, the fine-tuning of the universe, of the morality in the objective reality of this world, and the fact that we are, Pierce, people who operate with morals, with meaning and intention, and have intrinsic worth. But we look at these things and we don't arbitrarily pick Yahweh, the God of the Bible, over Zeus and Thor and Allah and Buddha. We do it, I would argue, based on the concrete, publicly available evidence that points to the truth claims that I would argue Christianity answers in regards to the ultimate questions we have.
The truth is the truth. There you go. And additionally to Ricky Gervais's point, and why should he believe one God out of all the 3,000 different gods? And that's true. That's why there's this thing called monotheistic, meaning having only one God. Now, there are many different religions that have multiple different gods, which contains paganistic rituals and beliefs, such as the Greek mythology or the Nordic mythology. But that's why the monotheistic religions of having only one God is so different, and that sets them apart from every other different religion. And more specifically, as it pertains to this, Christianity is the only one that builds a relationship with the Creator. All those different type of gods and those 3,000 gods mentioned, they're all part of the creation. Zeus, Thor, as great as they may seem in mythologies, they are still part of creation, susceptible to death, and every single one of those had a beginning, and they also had an ending. Whereas the one God we mentioned here, that is Yahweh, He is the only one that is outside of the creation. He is the Creator Himself. He operates in a different realm, and that 2,999 gods all are deities from within the world of creation, whereas Yahweh is the one outside of creation. He operates in a different realm. And adding more to that, in that he was referring to, why should he believe that this God is real and all the others weren't? Well, all of those were real. Every single one of those were a story, part of a culture and the experiences of a certain particular time. See, the topic of faith is so difficult to understand and grasp because faith is like a language. And most people just don't know how to speak it. Simply put, they're quite uneducated in it, unlearned. And that's not to disparage anybody. It's just to hold people accountable. Look, if someone speaks Russian and another person speaks Cantonese, those two people won't understand each other because they have a different standard of how they speak and express their emotions and thoughts. So they would never understand each other. Similarly, faith is also a language that only religious and faithful individuals understand. Whoever you believe, you have to understand and believe in the supernatural in order to grasp the understanding of faith. And if you deny that, well, you'll never understand faith and religion in the first place. And therefore, you'll never understand all the different gods that you have mentioned. So in this case, Ricky Gervais simply doesn't understand all the different gods because he doesn't even believe in the supernatural. Therefore, he doesn't believe in Buddha, doesn't believe in Allah, doesn't believe in Yahweh or any other gods for that matter. So religion and faith within himself is something that he would have never understood anyway because he refuses to learn the language of faith, the standards of the divine and the supernatural, because he exists only in what is seen, in the limitations of reality. Therefore, he can't fully grasp the truth that goes beyond it. And moving on to the last point that I want to mention in this is that, yes, there are many different gods. 3,000 to be exact. Ooh, mind-blowing. That's a lot. Just as there are 7 billion people in the world. But you don't follow every single one of those, and not every single life in terms of how they live it is right. There are a lot of people doing wrong. Similarly, that is also the standards of faith and religion. Now, the standards of religion is virtue, the ultimate goodness. And whoever can possess that, and whoever leads you towards that, contains the highest power. And you don't worship or follow religions and God based on their power alone, but most importantly, for the virtue they possess. The goodness in it, the qualities and the principles that lead you to a better life, to become a better person, and therefore lead to a better world. That is ultimately at the crux of what religion is. Now, when you look at all the different gods, this is why it's so important to get to know these people, get to know these religions, so that you actually understand them. If you want to know Christianity, get to know Jesus. If you want to get to know Islam, get to know Muhammad. If you want to get to know the Greek mythologies, get to know Zeus. And find out every single one of these 3,000 gods and how they came about and their story, and that you'll come to the conclusion that these gods are actually all different. And the difference in that is that their quality and virtues and what they portray and how they lead you is completely different. Just as how not all parents are the same, but there is a quality, a character that rises above all. What makes a great parent? Someone who is loving, someone who is caring, someone who is protective, someone who is nurturing, and someone who is selfless, who doesn't leave you. And if you meet those qualities to the highest degrees, then that makes you the greatest or the best parent. Similarly, this is how religion also works. There's a substrate and standard of virtue and morality that we must abide by. And the one that leads you closest to the pinnacle of virtue is the one and true religion. So that's what it means when it says, why is this above all the other different gods? Because Thor ain't going to lead you to goodness. Zeus and all the different gods, they have their faults. But there is this one God that makes you better. One that rises above all the others. And that's why it's the one on the top. If you reorder all the different religions, you will find out that there is some that is higher, some that are lower. Similarly, just as how you would order people, some are better, some are worse. Another interesting point that Ricky Gervais pointed out is the regeneration paradox, which he explains here.
Science is constantly proved all the time. You see, if we take something like any fiction, in any holy book, in any other fiction, and destroyed it, okay, in 1,000 years' time, that wouldn't come back just as it was. Whereas if we took every science book, right, and every fact, and destroyed them all, in 1,000 years, they'd all be back, because all the same tests would be the same result.
That's good. That's really good.
So simply put, in the regeneration paradox, is that if it's true, then it would be able to regenerate itself the same way later on. So if you take it out now, it will come back the same exact way as it was before, which is a great point. However, limited and reductionist in its value. Because let's decompartmentalize this. Scientifically, it's right. Let me use an analogy. Humans will always regenerate itself. Same eyes, mouth, nose, body, limbs, everything. The same human now, after I die, there will be another to replace me, and another, and the cycle moves on. So scientifically, that is so. It is right. Because if humans are true, it contains it in the DNA, in the biology of it. So it's all about the biology, the science behind it, and how it's produced. However, what Ricky Gervais is missing is that Ricky Gervais, the essence, the soul, the thoughts and emotions from the experiences it has will never ever be replicated in this time or another, or in the past or any other time in the future. And that is the specialty of what faith brings and religion adds to your life. It's the specificity of your existence, your consciousness, that makes you unique in a humanistic, in an individualistic essence, more than just the simple generic reproduction of what humans are. It is the essence and the specialness of you. And in its core, that is the main difference. So yes, Ricky Gervais is right in the scientific explanation that biology will always, humans will always be reproducing the same way as it did before, in the cycle of birth. But the essence of the soul is what faith and religion encapsulates. And that is something you can't replicate. So there you go, guys. I hope you like this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's grow this thing together. I'm Thirdy, helping you see life in plain sight. See you in the next one. Peace.